Hey there, VCE HHD students. My name's Andy. I'm a VC Health and Human Development teacher. In this short video, going to look at understanding the Human Development Index, and this is relevant to Unit 4 Area Study 1 for the 2025 plus HHD study design. If you don't already, there's lots of ways you engage with Health Resources Hub. If you're on YouTube at the moment, you can subscribe with the button in the bottom corner of the video there. That means you'll be subscribed to our YouTube channel and get alerts to all of our new videos as they come out across the year. And also head to our website, thehrh.net.au, where there's opportunities for teachers and students of HHD, and that's being updated regularly, so please check that out. We've got our Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook pages where you can follow us and get alerts to our new videos and other opportunities, as well as SAC and exam tips and advice, and also our email, info@thehrh.net.au, if you'd like to get in touch and request particular videos. Okay, so what parts of the course does this video now relate to? So you can see here the Unit 4 key knowledge and key skill that's related to the Human Development Index. So in a previous video, we looked at the concept of human development. So if you haven't had a look at that video, please go back into our back catalog on our YouTube channel and check that out. You can see here we're looking at advantages and limitations of the Human Development Index as a key knowledge point, and the key skill is asking you to be able to explain the Human Development Index and evaluate its usefulness in measuring human development in different countries. Okay, so what is the Human Development Index? So as I said previously, we looked at the concept of human development. So this is also developed by the United Nations, and we looked at the description of human development by the United Nations in our previous video. And the idea is it's used to measure and compare levels of social and economic development to give an evaluation essentially, or a judgment on levels of human development that are occurring in a particular country. So you can see there it says it provides a single statistic based on 3 dimensions and 4 indicators. And so in the diagram on the right there, you can see is a breakdown of those dimensions. And so you can see each dimension links into one or more indicators. So a long and healthy life is related to the indicator life expectancy at birth. Knowledge is related to mean and expected years of schooling, and a decent standard of living is related to gross national income per capita. So essentially what happens is data is gathered, in countries across the world every year, and that's put into a formula, and based on those indicators and that data, the Human Development Index, a value between 0 and 1, is calculated for that particular country, and that's reported each year in the Human Development Report that's released by the United Nations. And so that typically remains relatively steady, from year to year in countries, unless something significant might have happened in that country, perhaps something like conflict, which could have an impact on those indicators. And so it's important that you know both the dimensions and the indicators and how they're connected. But when it comes to what significantly could have an impact on that Human Development Index value, it's really the indicators and the values related to those indicators that's most important to think about. So you can see here, there's a bit more of a description, of each of those 4 indicators and what mean years of schooling means as compared to expected years of schooling. You probably already know what life expectancy at birth and GNI per capita relates to, but I would make sure that for each of these, terms that's part of the Human Development Index, that you ensure you've got them essentially word perfect in relation to the names of the indicators, and then know a bit of a description for each of those. So as part of your sort of glossary terms for Unit 4 Area Study 1. You can see down the bottom there, I've mentioned if you are asked to outline why 2 countries could experience different levels of Human Development Index, then I would recommend that you refer back to the indicators, one or more of those as part of your answer, because as I was saying previously, it's the values that are collected in relation to the data for these indicators that feeds into that overall HDI value between 0 and 1 for a country. So if you're comparing, 2 countries and their levels of HDI, then referring back to the indicators is most important. And we'll have a look at a question in a moment coming up where it gives you the chance to think about how you can do that. Just a reminder, if you're a Unit 3 and 4 student and you haven't signed up to our free student newsletter, you can see down the bottom there a link to our website where you can sign up to this newsletter. I'm sending out a few times a term, a free student newsletter that's got SAC and exam resources. So there'll be one coming out shortly with some resources related to human development and Human Development Index. And so if you haven't already, please head to our website and sign up to that. Okay, so obviously as well, the key knowledge point is asking you to know some advantages and limitations of the HDI. And so the reason for that is that this is one way of trying to measure levels of human development across the world, but it's not perfect. So there are advantages of it, but there's also some limitations. So it's good to know, a few advantages and limitations. And what I'll say is that students often can be quite brief okay, in their advantages and their limitations. And sometimes that means that they won't achieve marks in a particular question if it's asking for an advantage and a limitation. And that's because it's often not clear why what they've mentioned is actually an advantage or why what they've mentioned is a limitation. So if you have a look here, you can see most of these are a couple of sentences because it really properly fleshes out why it's an advantage or a limitation. So I won't read through all of these, but I'll touch on a couple of them. You can see there the first advantage talks about the fact that it's a composite statistic. So it's gathering a number of pieces of data and putting those together into one single statistic to measure levels of human development. And that means it can make comparison between countries easier to look at just sort of one overall value instead of trying to look at multiple pieces of data at once. Down the bottom there, you can see the other advantage. The third advantage as mentioned is it provides a more comprehensive measure of human development than income, education, life expectancy alone. So it just means that if you're looking, okay, at this overall, I guess, combination of these different, I guess, indicators, that gives you a greater overall reflection of levels of human development in a country than considering like a single measure by just looking at something like income or just looking at education. So that's an advantage also of the HDI. In terms of limitations, you can see that the first one, it doesn't consider all factors that influence human development and gives a couple of examples there. So gender equality and levels of discrimination, and therefore it doesn't necessarily fully reflect that concept or the levels of human development in a particular country, but it is, regardless of that, still a relatively good measure, and there's not many other sort of better single measures out there. Down the bottom, you can see there the third limitation talks about the data collection can be inconsistent between countries, as it's often complex to collect this data, so comparisons in the level of human development might not always be accurate, and sometimes countries might misrepresent their data, and so that can also be an issue. So as I said, advantages and limitations, it's not perfect, but it is a pretty good measure for looking at overall levels of human development across the globe, and this information and this measure has been collected for a number of years now. And so there's a lot of data that United Nations can look back on over a number of years and see how there's been changes over time in levels of human development, okay, in particular countries. And they can go there and see what sort of happened in those countries and what might have contributed to some of those improvements and perhaps share some of that knowledge with other countries, etc. Okay, so looking at a sample question and answer. So you can see this question here is referring to the image on the right there, and it's asking you to explain how both Chile and Equatorial Guinea can have the same GNI per capita but have a different human development index. So if you look at that image, you'll see on the left there for Chile and Equatorial Guinea, their income or their GNI per capita is at that same value on the left, but then their human development index is quite different on the right there. And so essentially the question is asking, well, if GNI per capita, okay, is one of those indicators and it's the same for Chile and Equatorial Guinea, then how come their human development index can be different? And so this is where it comes back to knowing that image with the four indicators and being able to understand the fact that those four indicators, okay, contribute to the overall human development index value. So the sample answer there mentions that because the HDI is made up of four indicators, even though Chile and Equatorial Guinea had the same GNI per capita, they could have different values for the other indicators. For example, Chile may have a higher life expectancy at birth and mean years of schooling than Equatorial Guinea, and that could therefore contribute to the higher HDI for Chile. So if you look back over there, overall Chile has that higher HDI. Okay, so maybe they do have a higher mean years of schooling, expected years of schooling, and life expectancy at birth than Equatorial Guinea. So when all of that is factored in, even though they've got the same GNI per capita, okay, Chile still has an overall higher HDI. Okay, hope you found that video useful. There's other questions related to human development, the Human Development Index in this ACE Revisions questions book that I've worked on for this 2025 plus HHD study design. If you'd like a copy of that, you can head to book.acedvc.com. It's got over 500 marks worth of questions and they're organized into the different topics throughout the course in Unit 3 and 4. There's also a full chapter on answering extended response questions, and that can be helpful for your SACs and the end of your exam for Section B. It's also a full trial exam in there with sample answers for all of the questions. So it's a really good resource if you're looking for some extra practice questions and sample responses. So as I said, that's at book.acedvc.com and you can order a copy and it'll come in the post. Okay, thanks so much.